Get on your knees and clean my shoes with your dress. Damon Sterling kicked my shin hard enough to bruise the bone. He did not spend $50 million on me because he wanted a wife. He bought me because he needed a breathing object to vent his rage on without legal consequences. I fell to the marble floor of the penthouse. My knees hit the cold stone with a dull thud. The pain was sharp. It radiated up my thighs. But compared to the training I endured in the Siberian camps of the syndicate, this was nothing but a tickle. I lowered my head. I let my long hair cover my face to hide the murderous intent burning in my eyes. I am Viper. I am a weapon. But right now, I must play the role of a terrified piece of merchandise. If I break character, my sister dies. That is the shackle keeping me here. The syndicate has her. They sent me to infiltrate the Sterling Empire. My mission is to get close to his father, Lucius Sterling, and end him. Damon is just the gatekeeper. I reached out with a trembling hand and wiped the dust from his Italian leather shoes with the hem of my white silk dress. Damon looked down at me with pure disgust. He poured a glass of whiskey and stepped over me as if I were a pile of trash. The air in the penthouse was freezing. It smelled of expensive cologne and danger. He sat on the leather sofa and pointed his gun at me. "You are too quiet for a woman who is just sold like cattle," Damon said. His voice was deep and devoid of warmth. He swirled the amber liquid in his glass. "Most women would be crying or begging for mercy by now. But you just take it." "Why?" I kept my head down. "I have no tears left, sir," I whispered. It was a calculated lie. The truth is, I was calculating exactly how many seconds it would take to snap his neck with my bare hands. 3 seconds. Maybe 4 if he resisted. But I could not do it. Not yet. I needed him alive to get to his father. Damon scoffed. He stood up and walked toward the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the Manhattan skyline. The city lights were blurring in the distance. He took a sip of his drink. "You are an investment, Elena. A very expensive one. Do not make me regret my purchase or I will liquidate you." The elevator doors chimed. A woman stormed in before the security could announce her. It was Isabella, the daughter of the media tycoon, and the woman Damon rejected to buy me. She looked like a predator sensing blood. Her heels clicked sharply against the marble floor. She marched straight up to Damon, but her eyes were fixed on me. She looked at me with the kind of hatred that only exists in the upper class, the hatred of someone who thinks their property has been stolen. "So this is her," Isabella sneered. "The $50 million whore." She walked over to where I was still kneeling. She held a glass of red wine in her hand. Without a word, she tilted her wrist. The dark red liquid splashed onto my face and soaked into the white dress. It felt cold and sticky. It smelled of fermented grapes and humiliation. I did not move. I did not wipe it off. I just sat there and let the wine drip down my chin like blood. "Oops," Isabella laughed. It was a hollow, cruel sound. My hand slipped. "But honestly, the dress looks better now. Red suits a gutter rat like you." Damon did not stop her. He leaned against the window and watched. He was testing me. He wanted to see if I would fight back. This was the trap. If I fought back, I would reveal my skills. If I did not fight back, I would be humiliated. I chose the latter. I was trained to endure torture. A splash of wine was nothing. Isabella took my silence for weakness. She stepped closer. She grabbed my chin with her manicured nails and forced me to look up at her. "You think you won the lottery because he bought you?" she hissed. "You are just a placeholder until he gets bored. You do not belong here. You are trash." I looked into her eyes. For a split second, I let my mask slip. I let her see the darkness inside me. Isabella flinched. She stepped back instinctively. She saw something in my eyes that terrified her. But she covered her fear with anger. She raised her hand to slap me. I saw the muscle in her shoulder twitch before she even moved. My body reacted automatically. My hand twitched. I could have caught her wrist and broken it in 2 places before she even realized what happened. But I stopped myself. I forced my muscles to relax. I let her hand connect with my cheek. The sound of flesh hitting flesh echoed in the silent room. My head snapped to the side. The sting was sharp. My cheek burned. But the satisfaction of fooling them was sweeter. I touched my lip. It was bleeding. I looked at Damon. He was not smiling. He was frowning. He pushed himself off the window ledge and walked over. The air shifted. The predator had entered the circle. "Get out, Isabella," Damon said calmly. "What?" Isabella looked shocked. "I am doing you a favor. I am teaching this thing her place." I said, "Get out." Damon did not raise his voice. He did not have to. His presence was enough to suck the oxygen out of the room. "She is my property. If anyone is going to break her, it will be me, not you. If you touch my investment again, I will have your father's company audited by the morning. Do you understand?" Isabella turned pale. She knew he was not bluffing. The Sterling family controlled the banks. They could destroy a media empire with a single phone call. She glared at me one last time and stormed out. The elevator doors closed. Silence returned. But it was heavier now. Damon walked up to me. He did not offer a hand to help me up. He reached down and grabbed my hair. He pulled my head back, forcing me to look at him. His grip was iron. "You almost hit her back," Damon said. It was not a question. "I saw your hand move. Your reflexes are too fast for a girl from the slums. Who trained you?" My heart rate remained steady. "Living on the streets teaches you to be fast, sir. If you are slow, you die." "Liar." Damon tightened his grip. "You took that slap on purpose. You wanted her to hit you." "Why?" "Because I am yours," I said, looking straight into his eyes. "And I know the rules. Only the master can punish the dog." Damon stared at me. He was searching for a crack in my story. He saw the defiance in my eyes, and he hated it. He hated that he could not terrify me. He let go of my hair and shoved me backward. I caught myself before I hit the floor. He turned his back to me and walked toward the minibar. He needed another drink. He was frustrated. This was his blind spot. He was arrogant. He believed that money could buy total control. He did not understand that some things are forged in fire, not bought with gold. He poured a drink. His back was exposed. It was a perfect opening. I could take the letter opener from the desk and end him right now. But the image of my sister screaming in the syndicate's dungeon flashed in my mind. I stayed put. Suddenly, a red dot appeared on the back of Damon's designer suit. It was faint, almost invisible. But to a trained eye, it was as bright as a lighthouse, a laser sight. "Get down!" I screamed. I did not think. I launched myself forward. I tackled Damon just as the glass window shattered. The sound was deafening. A high-caliber bullet tore through the space where his chest had been a millisecond ago. It embedded itself in the mahogany wall with a sickening thud. We hit the floor hard. I landed on top of him. Glass shards rained down on us like diamonds. Damon looked up at me. His eyes were wide with shock. For the first time tonight, the arrogance was gone, replaced by pure adrenaline. I covered his body with mine. I scanned the room. The shooter was likely in the building across the street. He would fire again. "Move," I ordered. I forgot to say sir. I forgot to be the slave. I grabbed Damon by the collar and dragged him behind the heavy oak sofa. Another bullet whizzed past my ear and shattered a vase. The sound of destruction filled the room. "What the hell is happening?" Damon growled. He reached for his gun, which had slid across the floor. "Stay down." I pressed his shoulder down. "They are using a thermal scope. The sofa is thick enough to hide our heat signature." Damon looked at me. He looked at the way I was crouched, balanced on the balls of my feet, ready to spring. He looked at my hands, which were steady despite the chaos. He realized something. A normal girl would be screaming. A normal girl would be cowering in fear. I was analyzing the trajectory of the bullets. The shooting stopped. Sirens began to wail in the distance. The shooter had fled. I let out a breath I did not know I was holding. I looked down at Damon. He was staring at me with a mixture of confusion and suspicion. This was bad. I had revealed too much. I saved him because he is my target. If someone else kills him, I lose my access to his father. But he does not know that. To him, I just performed a miracle. Damon pushed me off him. He crawled toward his gun and grabbed it. He stood up, keeping his body low. He checked the window. Then he turned to me. He did not thank me. He aimed the gun directly at the center of my forehead. The barrel was still warm. "A girl from the streets does not know what a thermal scope is," Damon said. His voice was terrifyingly calm. He cocked the hammer of the gun. The click echoed in the silence. "And a girl from the streets does not move faster than a bullet. You just saved my life. Now give me one good reason why I should not end yours right now. Who sent you?" I looked at the gun. Then I looked at him. I raised my hand slowly. My cover was blown, or at least cracked. I had to pivot. I had to use the logic of the situation. "If I wanted you dead," I said slowly, "I would have let the bullet hit you." Damon narrowed his eyes. He did not lower the gun. "That is not an answer. That is a deflection. Tell me who you are." "I am the only person in this room who just kept you alive," I said. "Maybe you should worry less about who I am and more about who wants you dead enough to fire a .50 caliber round into your penthouse." Damon stared at me for a long moment. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. He knew I was right. But his pride was wounded. He lowered the gun slightly but kept his finger on the trigger. "We are not done," he said. "Security is on the way. If you lie to me again, Elena, I will hand you over to them. And they are not as gentle as I am." He walked over to the intercom and smashed the button. "Lock down the building, no one leaves, and get a cleanup crew up here. We have a mess." He looked back at me. I was still crouching behind the sofa. The red wine stain on my dress was now mixed with dust and glass shards. I looked like a fallen angel, or a demon in disguise. Damon's eyes darkened. He realized that the woman he bought was not a pet. She was a mystery, and he hated mysteries that he could not solve. "Get up," he commanded. "You are going to tell me everything, every dirty little secret, starting with why you smell like gunpowder." I stood up. I brushed the glass from my knees. The game had changed. I was no longer just a victim. I was a player. And players get hurt. But I would endure it. For my sister. For the mission. I looked at the broken window. The wind howled through the hole. The city below was indifferent to our violence. This was just the beginning. The bullet was a message. And the sender was likely the man I came here to kill. Lucius Sterling. He was testing his son. Or maybe he was testing me. Either way, the war had begun, and I was standing right in the middle of the battlefield with a target on my back. The barrel of Damon's gun did not waver from my forehead, but he did not pull the trigger. He was a businessman, and he did not destroy assets that had just proven their value. Instead, he lowered the weapon and signaled to the shadows. Two men emerged. They were not ordinary security guards. They wore tactical gear with no insignias. Their faces were covered by black balaclavas. They moved with the silent efficiency of executioners. I recognized the type immediately. Mercenaries. Former special forces on a private payroll. Damon holstered his gun and poured himself another drink. His hands were steady now. The shock of the assassination attempt had faded, leaving only cold calculation. "Take her downstairs," Damon ordered. He did not look at me. "I want to know where a girl from the gutter learned to identify a thermal scope. Use the tank. Do not leave marks. I have a dinner to attend and I need her presentable. The men grabbed my arms. Their grip was bruising. I did not resist. If I fought, I would have to kill them. And if I killed them, I would lose my chance to get to Lucius. I let them drag me out of the ruined penthouse. The elevator descended rapidly. My stomach dropped. We went past the lobby, past the parking garage, down into the sub-basement. The air grew cold and damp. This was where the Sterling family buried their secrets. They threw me into a room with concrete walls and a single drain in the floor. In the center stood a glass tank filled with ice water. It was a classic interrogation method. Clean, painful, terrifying. It leaves no scars on the skin, but it breaks the mind. They did not ask questions. They simply bound my wrists with plastic zip ties and forced my head into the water. The cold hit me like a physical blow. It felt like 1,000 needles piercing my skin. My lungs screamed for air. I closed my eyes and retreated into my mind. I went back to the training camps in Siberia. I remembered the frozen lakes. I remembered the instructor's voice telling me that pain is just information. I counted the seconds. 1, 2, 3. Panic is the enemy. Panic burns oxygen. I slowed my heart rate. I let my body go limp. To the men holding me down, I looked like a drowning victim. Inside, I was calm. I was waiting. At 40 seconds, they pulled me up. I gasped for air. Water dripped from my hair and mixed with the tears I forced myself to cry. "Who trained you?" one of the mercenaries asked. His voice was muffled by the mask. "Nobody," I choked out. "Please, I am just a nobody." They dunked me again. This time for 60 seconds. The burning in my chest intensified. My vision started to spot with black dots. This was the dangerous part. If I held out too long, they would know I was trained. No civilian holds their breath for 2 minutes while freezing to death. I had to break. I had to give them a lie they would believe. At 70 seconds, I started to thrash. I let out air bubbles. I simulated the panic of drowning. They pulled me up. I fell to the wet concrete, coughing violently. My body shook uncontrollably from the hypothermia setting in. The door opened. Damon walked in. He was wearing a fresh suit. He looked immaculate. He looked at me shivering on the floor and felt nothing. He crouched down so his face was level with mine. "You held your breath for over a minute," Damon said. He checked his watch. "Impressive. Most people panic at 30 seconds. Try again, Elena. Who taught you?" I looked up at him. My teeth were chattering. I had to sell this lie. It was my only shield. "The streets," I whispered. "I grew up in the projects in Detroit. My stepfather used to hold my head in the bathtub when he was drunk. He liked to see how long I could struggle. I learned to hold my breath so I wouldn't die. Is that what you want to hear?" Damon stared at me. He was looking for a micro-expression, a sign of deceit. But the story was close enough to the truth of my childhood before the syndicate took me. The pain in my eyes was real. The hatred for men like him was real. "And the thermal scope," Damon pressed. "How does a girl from the projects know about military hardware?" "My ex-boyfriend ran guns for the gangs." I lied. He used to brag about his inventory. He showed me how the scopes worked. He said, "If you see a red dot, run. If you don't see anything, hide." Damon stood up. He looked at the mercenaries. They shrugged. My story was plausible. It explained my reflexes and my knowledge without revealing my identity as Viper. It painted me as a victim of circumstance, a survivor of a brutal life. That was a narrative a man like Damon could accept. It fed his ego. He liked thinking he had rescued me from the gutter. "Get her dry," Damon ordered. "We are leaving in 20 minutes. And find her a dress with long sleeves. You bruised her wrists." 20 minutes later, I was sitting in the back of an armored limousine. I wore a black velvet dress that covered the red marks from the zip ties. My hair was still damp. I was shivering, but I hid it. Damon sat across from me working on his tablet. He acted as if he hadn't just waterboarded me in his basement. This was the duality of the American elite. They could order torture with the same casual tone they used to order dinner. "Where are we going?" I asked. My voice was hoarse. "To meet the man who tried to kill me," Damon said without looking up. "My father, Lucius Sterling." My heart skipped a beat. This was it. The opportunity. I touched the silver fork I had slid into my sleeve during the brief moment I was left alone with the food tray. It wasn't a knife, but it was sharp enough to puncture a carotid artery if applied with enough force. The car stopped in front of a sprawling estate in the Hamptons. It looked like a fortress disguised as a mansion. Security guards patrolled the perimeter with attack dogs. This was Lucius's kingdom. We walked into the grand dining room. Lucius Sterling sat at the head of a long mahogany table. He was an older version of Damon, but with colder eyes. Eyes that had seen decades of corruption and bloodshed without blinking. He did not stand up to greet his son. He continued cutting his steak. "You are late," Lucius said. He glanced at me. "And you brought the stray dog. I thought I told you to get rid of her. She is useful." Damon pulled out a chair for me. It was a mock gesture of chivalry. "She saved my life tonight. Someone put a sniper on the roof opposite my penthouse. High caliber, professional." Lucius stopped chewing. He looked at Damon. Then he smiled. It was a smile that made my skin crawl. "Is that so?" Lucius wiped his mouth with a linen napkin. "Maybe you should pay your debts, Damon. You have made many enemies in the arms trade. Do not expect me to clean up your mess." "I do not have debts," Damon replied coldly. "I eliminate them, just like I will eliminate the person who hired that sniper." The tension in the room was suffocating. Father and son stared at each other like two wolves fighting for dominance. I sat silently gripping the fork in my sleeve. Lucius was within striking distance. 3 steps. Lunge. Strike. It would be over. The syndicate would be pleased. My sister would be free. I tensed my leg muscles, preparing to move. And you?" Lucius turned his gaze to me. "The $50 million purchase. Do you know why my son bought you?" I stayed silent. "He bought you because you look like his mother." Lucius laughed. A cruel, dry sound. "Weak, pathetic, and destined to die young. Enjoy the wine, my dear. It costs more than your entire life." The insult was the trigger. Not for anger, but for action. He was distracted. He was arrogant. I started to slide the fork down into my palm. But then Lucius pulled out his phone. He placed it on the table. "By the way, Damon," Lucius said casually, "I wouldn't take the limousine back to the city if I were you. My security team found something interesting attached to the undercarriage, a C4 explosive, wired to the ignition." I froze. The fork stopped moving. "Is that a threat?" Damon stood up. His hand went to his holster. "It is a warning." Lucius took a sip of wine. "You are sloppy, Damon. If I wanted you dead, you would have blown up the moment you turned the key." I disarmed it. "Consider it a father's gift. But next time, check your vehicle. You are becoming a liability to the family name." My mind raced. Lucius claimed he disarmed it. But Lucius was a liar. If I killed him now, the guards would swarm us. Damon would be trapped. And if the car was truly rigged, we had no escape route. I had to abort. The mission parameters had changed. I needed Damon alive to get out of here. I slid the fork back up my sleeve. "Let's go!" Damon grabbed my arm. "We are leaving." "Use the SUV," Lucius called out as we turned away. "The limo is compromised." Damon dragged me out of the dining room. He was furious. He marched past the guards and toward the driveway. The limousine was still parked there. Next to it was a black SUV. Damon headed for the SUV. But I stopped. I looked at the limousine. I saw a tiny blinking light near the rear wheel well. A red light. Wait! I pulled Damon back. Get in the car! Damon snapped. We are leaving now. No, I said. Look at the limo. The light is blinking fast. It wasn't disarmed? It's on a timer. Damon looked. He realized it too late. The timer wasn't wired to the ignition. It was wired to a remote detonator. And Lucius was likely holding the button watching us from the window. Run! Damon shouted. He tackled me for the second time tonight. We dove behind a stone fountain just as the limousine exploded. The shockwave was massive. The heat seared the air. Metal debris rained down on the fountain. The sound was so loud it didn't register as noise, just pure pressure in the ears. The ground shook. Flames engulfed the driveway, turning the night sky orange. We lay there on the cold grass, gasping for air. My ears were ringing. I looked up at the house. Lucius was standing at the window holding his glass of wine. He was watching the fire. He had tried to kill his own son, not with a sniper, but with a bomb. And he had lied about disarming it to give us false hope. This was not just a family feud. This was a war of annihilation. Damon pushed himself up. His face was covered in soot. His eyes were burning with a rage I had never seen in a human being. It was the rage of a demon. He looked at the burning wreck that used to be his car. Then he looked at me. You saw the light, Damon said. His voice was low and dangerous. First the sniper, now the bomb. You see things that trained soldiers miss. Who are you, Elena? I coughed, clearing the smoke from my lungs. I was trapped. I had saved him twice. The coincidence was too great. My cover story about the slums wouldn't hold up against this level of tactical awareness. I told you, I said, looking him in the eye. I am a survivor. And right now, I am the only reason you are not burning inside that car. Damon grabbed my jaw. His thumb pressed hard against my cheekbone. My father just declared war, Damon hissed. He wants me dead so he can sell the company to the Russians. If you want to survive, you are going to have to do more than just spot bombs. Can you shoot? I hesitated. This was a dangerous question. I can learn, I lied. Good. Damon pulled me up. Because from this moment on, you are not my wife. You are my soldier. Get in the SUV. We are going to hunt. He dragged me to the second vehicle. I looked back at the house one last time. Lucius was gone from the window. He failed tonight. But he would try again. And next time he would use my sister against me. I realized with a sinking feeling that the shackle had tightened. I couldn't just kill Lucius anymore. I had to protect Damon long enough for him to destroy Lucius's defenses. Only then could I strike. I climbed into the SUV. The leather seat was cold. Damon started the engine. He didn't look at me. He was already planning his revenge, and I was just another weapon in his arsenal. But he didn't know that the weapon in his passenger seat was pointed at him too. Breaking news. Damon Sterling, the heir to the Sterling financial empire, presumed dead. The anchorwoman's voice on the giant wall-mounted screen was somber, but her eyes gleamed with the thrill of a high-ratings tragedy. We were standing in the center of Damon's safe house. It was not a house. It was a decommissioned bank vault beneath a nightclub in the meatpacking district. The walls were reinforced steel. The air was recycled and stale. Damon stood in front of the screen watching his own obituary. He held a bottle of water in his hand. His knuckles were white. On the screen, the burning wreckage of the limousine looped endlessly. Then the camera cut to a live interview. My stomach turned. It was Isabella. She was dressed in black, standing outside the police station. She dabbed at her dry eyes with a lace handkerchief. Damon was troubled. Isabella sobbed into the microphone. He was struggling with substance abuse. He was paranoid. He told me he wanted to end it all. I tried to save him. But he drove that car away in a rage. It is a tragedy. Damon threw the water bottle at the screen. It hit Isabella's face with a violent crack and exploded. Water dripped down the LED panels, distorting her fake tears. "She is liquidating my reputation," Damon said. His voice was a low growl. "She is painting me as an unstable junkie so the board of directors will invoke the morality clause. By tomorrow morning, my stock options will be worthless. My father will buy them for pennies on the dollar." I stood in the corner hugging my arms. I was cold. Not from the temperature, but from the ruthless efficiency of their warfare. Lucius tried to kill Damon's body. Isabella was killing his name. They were erasing him from existence. "We have to go back," I said. "If you are alive, you can stop the stock slide." "No." Damon turned to me. His eyes were bloodshot. "If I reappear now, Lucius will just send another sniper, or a bomb, or poison. I need to stay dead, just for 24 hours, long enough to hunt down the rats in my organization, starting with the man who planted that bomb." Damon walked over to a steel table covered in weapons. He picked up a heavy black pistol, a Desert Eagle, 50 caliber, a ridiculous weapon for a civilian. It was meant to intimidate, not to be practical. He checked the magazine and racked the slide. The metallic sound echoed off the vault walls. He walked toward me and extended the handle. "Take it," Damon ordered. I looked at the gun. Then I looked at him. This was the test. I have never held a gun before. I lied. My voice trembled perfectly. "You said you could learn." Damon shoved the weapon into my hand. "Hold it. It is heavy. It kicks like a mule. Do not drop it or it might go off and blow your foot off." I took the gun. I held it awkwardly. I let the barrel dip toward the floor. I gripped it with a loose wrist. A rookie mistake. If I fired like this, the recoil would snap the gun back into my face. I had to act incompetent but not suicidal. I adjusted my grip slightly. Just enough to be safe but still looking amateurish. "Come with me," Damon commanded. He led me through a heavy blast door into a soundproof shooting range. At the end of the room there were no paper targets. There was a chair, and tied to the chair was a man. He was beaten. His face was swollen. Blood dripped from his nose onto his expensive shirt. I recognized him. It was the valet driver from the estate, the man who had access to the limousine. "This is the man who let my father rig the car," Damon said. He walked behind the chair and grabbed the man's hair, pulling his head back. "He claims he was forced. He says my father threatened his family. I do not care. Loyalty is binary. You are either with me or you are dead." The man whimpered. He looked at me with pleading eyes. He saw a woman in a ruined evening gown holding a gun she didn't know how to use. He thought I was his savior. He was wrong. "Shoot him," Damon said. I froze. The gun felt heavy in my hand. This was not part of the plan. I kill targets. I kill soldiers. I do not execute terrified valet drivers for the sins of their masters. It violated the syndicate's code of low profile. But more importantly, it violated my own rules. "I can't," I whispered. I lowered the gun. "He is tied up. He is helpless." "He tried to burn us alive." Damon stepped away from the chair, leaving a clear line of fire. "If you are going to be my soldier, Elena, you have to dirty your hands. If you don't shoot him, I will assume you are working with them. And then, I will shoot you." He drew his own weapon, a smaller, faster Glock 17. He aimed it at my chest. He was not bluffing. The urgency in his eyes told me he was on the edge of a breakdown. He needed to know he could trust me. He needed an accomplice. I raised the Desert Eagle. My hands shook. I closed my eyes. I had to calculate this perfectly. I needed to miss the vital organs but hit him somewhere that looked lethal enough to satisfy Damon. Or maybe I should miss no. If I missed at this range, Damon would take the gun and kill him. I had to wound him. A flesh wound. The thigh. It bleeds a lot, but it is not fatal if treated quickly. "Do it," Damon roared. I squeezed the trigger. I did not brace for the recoil. I let the gun fly up. The explosion was deafening in the small room. The Desert Eagle kicked back hard, hitting my forehead. I stumbled back and dropped the gun. It clattered on the concrete. The man in the chair screamed. It was a high-pitched sound of pure agony. I opened my eyes. I had hit him in the left thigh. The bullet had passed through the muscle, avoiding the femoral artery. Blood began to pool on the floor. It looked horrific. "Oh my God!" I screamed. I covered my mouth with my hands. "I killed him. I killed him." Damon looked at the man. Then he looked at me. He saw the red mark on my forehead where the gun had hit me. He saw my shaking hands. He saw the accidental shot. He believed it. He walked over and kicked the gun away from me. "You didn't kill him," Damon said calmly. "You shot him in the leg. You missed the heart by 3 feet. You are a terrible shot, Elena." He walked over to the valet, who was sobbing in pain. Damon leaned down. "You are lucky she is incompetent," Damon whispered to the man. "Now tell me, who exactly gave you the detonator? Was it Lucius or was it Isabella?" "It was Isabella." The valet screamed. "She gave it to me. She said if I didn't do it, she would plant drugs in my son's locker. Please, call an ambulance." Damon stood up. He looked at me. There was a new respect in his eyes, not for my skill, which I had successfully hidden, but for my willingness to pull the trigger. I had crossed the line. I was now an accomplice to attempted murder. "Isabella," Damon muttered. "So she wants to play the widow? Fine. We will give her a funeral." He walked over to a wall intercom and pressed a button. "Get the medic in here, patch this idiot up and throw him in a cell. He is a witness now." 2 guards rushed in. They ignored me and went to the bleeding man. Damon grabbed my arm and pulled me out of the room. We went back into the main vault area. He pushed me down onto a leather couch. My adrenaline was fading, leaving me cold and nauseous. I touched my forehead. It was swelling. "You did good." Damon handed me a towel with ice inside. "You hesitated. You missed. But you pulled the trigger. That is more than most men would do." He sat next to me. He was too close. I could smell the gunpowder on him. "Why?" I asked. "Why did you make me do that?" "Because tomorrow we are going to walk into my father's headquarters," Damon said. "And I need to know that if Isabella comes at you with a knife, you won't freeze. We are going to take back my company. And we are going to destroy hers." Suddenly my phone buzzed. It was hidden in the lining of my dress. Damon didn't hear it over the hum of the ventilation system. I felt the vibration against my hip. It was a pattern. 3 short pulses. 1 long. That was the syndicate's emergency signal. "I need to use the bathroom," I said, standing up abruptly. "I think I am going to be sick." Damon nodded. "Down the hall. First door on the right. Do not try to leave. The doors are biolocked." I ran to the bathroom and locked the door. I pulled out the burner phone. There was a text message. It was a picture. My blood ran cold. It was a photo of my sister. She was tied to a chair similar to the one in the shooting range, but she wasn't in a cell. She was in a bedroom. A bedroom with pink wallpaper. I recognized it. It was Isabella's old room in the Sterling estate. The text below read, "The target has changed. Kill Damon Sterling by midnight or we send her back to you in pieces." I dropped the phone into the sink. The syndicate had sold me out. They were working with Isabella. Or maybe Isabella had hired them. It didn't matter. The shackle had just turned into a noose. I had 6 hours to kill the man who was currently protecting me from the police. I looked in the mirror. Viper stared back at me, but her eyes were terrified. I washed my face. I had to make a choice. Save my sister, or save myself. I unlocked the door and walked back out. Damon was loading a new magazine into the Desert Eagle. He looked up and smiled. A predator's smile. "Ready for round 2?" he asked. "No," I said. My voice was steady now. The assassin was back in control. I am ready for the main event. I walked toward him. I knew what I had to do. I would help him destroy Isabella. I would help him take down his father. And then, when he was at the peak of his victory, I would put a bullet in his heart. Just like the contract demanded. Because in this world, love is a luxury. But family is a debt that must be paid in blood. I checked my watch. 9 p.m. I had 3 hours to liquidate the man sitting next to me in the passenger seat of the stolen sedan. Damon was checking his weapon. He looked focused. He looked alive. He did not know that the woman driving him was calculating the exact angle to sever his spinal cord with a hairpin. The syndicate was clear. Midnight, or my sister dies. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I had to get us into the Sterling Tower first. I had to find Isabella. She was the key. If I killed Damon now, I would never find the location of the safe house where they were keeping my sister. So I played the part of the loyal soldier. Park in the delivery bay. Damon pointed to a side entrance. My access codes should still work unless my father has scrubbed the system entirely. I pulled the car into the shadows. The loading dock was quiet. Too quiet. My instincts screamed trap. But Damon was already out of the car, moving toward the keypad. He punched in a code. The light turned red. Denied. Damn it, Damon hissed. Lucius moves fast. He locked me out of my own building. Let me try. I stepped forward. Damon looked at me. Do you have a master key for a multi-billion-dollar security system in your pocket? No. I knelt down by the panel. But I have this. I pulled a small jamming device from my heel. It was standard syndicate issue. I placed it over the card reader. It cycled through algorithms faster than the human eye could track. Within 10 seconds, the light turned green. The heavy steel door clicked open. Damon stared at me. The suspicion was back in his eyes. He opened his mouth to ask, but I cut him off. YouTube tutorial. I lied. You can learn anything on the internet these days. Are we going in, or are we standing here until your father's death squad finds us? Damon didn't buy it, but he didn't have time to argue. We slipped inside. The service corridor was empty. We moved toward the freight elevator. The plan was simple. Get to the top floor. Crash the emergency board meeting where Lucius and Isabella were finalizing the sale of the company. Stop the sale, and then, for me, execute the contract. The elevator climbed. My heart hammered against my ribs. Floor 50. Floor 60. At floor 80, the doors opened. We were not in a hallway. We were in the middle of a security checkpoint. 3 guards turned to look at us. They reached for their radios. Intruders, one shouted. Damon raised his gun. But he was too slow. I moved. I didn't think. I just reacted. I grabbed the first guard's wrist, twisted it, and used his body as a shield. Damon fired 2 shots, dropping the other 2 guards. I slammed the first guard's head into the elevator panel. He crumpled. It took 4 seconds. Damon stared at the bodies. Then he stared at me. There was no way to explain this away as luck or street fighting. We will talk about this later, Damon said. His voice was cold. Right now, we have a meeting to crash. He stepped over the bodies and marched toward the boardroom double doors. I followed. My hand hovered over the knife in my pocket. It was 10 p.m. 2 hours left. Damon kicked the doors open. The room went silent. 12 board members in expensive suits froze. At the head of the table sat Lucius. And next to him, dressed in mourning black, was Isabella. She looked like a grieving widow until she saw Damon. Her face went pale. It was the face of someone seeing a ghost. Damon. Lucius stood up. He didn't look scared. He looked annoyed. You are supposed to be dead. Disappointed. Damon walked into the room, gun lowered but ready. Sorry to interrupt the funeral, but I am still very much alive, and I am vetoing this sale. Security! Isabella shrieked. She stood up, knocking her chair over. He is insane. He has a gun. Shoot him. Ma, nobody moves. I stepped into the room. I aimed the Desert Eagle at Isabella. My hand was steady. Sit down, Isabella, or I will ruin that dress with something harder to clean than wine. The board members ducked under the table. Lucius remained standing. He looked at me, then he looked at Damon. A slow smile spread across his face. So, Lucius chuckled. The stray dog has teeth. Interesting. But you are too late, Damon. The vote is cast. The company is sold. You are trespassing. The vote is illegal if the CEO is alive. Damon threw a folder onto the table. And I have proof of coercion. Isabella rigged my car. That is attempted murder, which makes her shares invalid. Isabella laughed. It was a manic sound. She pulled out her phone. You have no proof, she sneered. And even if you did, it doesn't matter. Because you don't have leverage. But I do. She turned the phone screen toward us. My blood froze. It was a live feed. My sister. She was gagged, crying, tied to a radiator. A man in a mask held a knife to her throat. Elena, Isabella purred. I believe you know this girl. Your sister. Sweet thing. It would be a shame if she stopped breathing. Damon turned to look at me. The realization hit him like a truck. The thermal scope, the skills, the jamming device. It all clicked. You know her? Damon asked. His voice was a whisper of betrayal. She is my sister, I said. I didn't look at him. I kept my gun on Isabella. Drop the gun, Elena, Isabella ordered, or the man cuts her throat. Right now. I hesitated. It was 11 p.m. 1 hour left. If I drop the gun, Damon dies. If I don't, my sister dies. The logic was binary. The choice was impossible. Don't do it, Elena, Damon said. He raised his gun at Lucius. We can take them. Drop it, Isabella screamed. On the screen, the man pressed the knife into my sister's skin. A thin line of blood appeared. I dropped the Desert Eagle. It hit the carpet with a dull thud. Good girl, Isabella smiled. Now, pick up Damon's gun and shoot him. Damon looked at me. He didn't move. He didn't raise his gun at me. He just watched. He was waiting to see whose side I was really on. You have a contract, Lucius said smoothly. The syndicate told me. Midnight. You kill him. We release the girl. Simple business transaction. So Lucius was the client. He hired the syndicate to hire me to kill his son. The circle was complete. I walked toward Damon. I held out my hand. Give me the gun, Damon, I said. My voice was dead. You won't do it, Damon said. You saved me twice. That was before I knew they had her, I said. Give me the gun. Damon looked deep into my eyes. He was searching for a sign, a plan, a signal. I gave him nothing but ice. Slowly, he handed me his Glock. I turned around. I faced the board members. I faced Lucius and Isabella. I held the gun in both hands. I aimed it at Damon's chest. Do it, Isabella chanted. Kill him. Be free. I took a deep breath. 11:30 p.m. I am sorry, Damon, I whispered. I pulled the trigger. Bang! Damon crumpled to the floor. Blood bloomed on his white shirt right over his heart. He didn't move. He didn't breathe. The room erupted in screams. Isabella clapped her hands. Lucius nodded approvingly. Well done, Lucius said. The contract is fulfilled. I lowered the smoking gun. I looked at Damon's body. I felt a tear slide down my cheek. It was real. But the shot was a gamble. I aimed for the precise spot where I knew he kept his silver cigarette case. A thick, antique silver case. It might stop a 9mm round. It might not. My sister, I said, turning to Isabella. Release her. Of course, Isabella tapped her phone. The order is sent. She will be dropped off at the nearest hospital. She walked over to me. She looked at Damon's body with satisfaction. Then she looked at me. You are a useful tool, she said. Maybe I will keep you. I quit, I said. And then I pistol whipped her. I smashed the butt of the Glock into her perfect nose. She went down screaming. Lucius shouted for guards. But I was already moving. I grabbed Isabella by the hair and dragged her to the window. I smashed the glass with a chair. Wind roared into the boardroom. I held her over the edge, 50 stories down. Where is she really? I screamed over the wind. If she is not safe in 5 minutes, you are going flying. She is in the basement. Isabella shrieked. This building, the sub-basement. She is here. They lied. She was here the whole time. I pulled Isabella back in and threw her at Lucius. They collided in a heap of expensive fabric and cowardice. I looked at Damon. His fingers twitched. Just a little. He was alive. The case held. Stay dead, I whispered to him. Then I ran. I ran for the stairwell. I had 10 minutes to get to the basement, kill the guards, and save my sister before Lucius's private army swarmed the building. The elevator was a death trap. I took the stairs, jumping entire flights. Midnight struck as I hit the lobby floor. The hunt was on. But this time I wasn't the prey. I was the viper. And I was coming for blood. Killer on sight. The order crackled over the radio of the guard patrolling the stairwell. Lucius did not waste time. He had declared me a loose end. I was sprinting down the concrete stairs. My bare feet bled. I had kicked off my heels 10 flights up. Pain was irrelevant. Speed was everything. Floor B2, the sub-basement. The air here smelled of damp earth and ozone. This was not the polished corporate world above. This was the boiler room of hell. I burst through the fire door. 3 guards stood in the corridor. They were heavily armed. They saw me. They saw the woman in the torn evening gown holding a Glock. They laughed. Drop the weapon, sweetheart. The leader sneered. Or we will make this slow. I did not slow down. I did not speak. I raised the gun and fired. 2 shots. Double tap. The leader dropped with a hole in his throat. The laughter died instantly. The other 2 raised their rifles. I slid across the polished concrete floor. The friction burned my skin. Bullets sparked against the wall above my head. I kicked the legs out from under the second guard. I heard the snap of his tibia. He screamed. I used his falling body as a shield against the third guard. I fired over his shoulder. 1 shot. Clean headshot. The third guard fell. I stood up. I executed the second guard with a single shot to the chest. No mercy. Not tonight. Not when my sister was 10 feet away. I reloaded. My hands were slick with sweat and blood. I moved to the heavy steel door at the end of the hall. It was locked. I didn't have the code. I didn't have time to hack it. I pressed my ear to the metal. I heard sobbing. Faint. Terrified. It was her. Mia, I screamed. Cover your ears. I aimed the Glock at the electronic lock mechanism. I unloaded the entire magazine. Sparks flew. Smoke filled the air. The mechanism melted. I kicked the door. It groaned, but held. I kicked again. With every ounce of rage I had suppressed for 3 years. The door flew open. The room was small. A storage closet converted into a cell. Mia was tied to a chair in the center. She looked thin, pale. Her eyes were wide with terror. A man stood behind her. He held a knife to her throat. It was the same man from the video call. He was shaking. Stay back, he yelled. I will cut her, I swear. I leveled my empty gun at him. He didn't know it was empty. Let her go, I said. My voice was a graveyard. And I will let you live. Lucius said you would kill us all. The man pressed the knife harder. Blood trickled down Mia's neck. He said you are a monster. He is right. I dropped the empty magazine. I reached into my dress pocket. I pulled out a spare. I racked the slide. The sound was loud in the small room. I am a monster, and you are holding my heart. The man panicked. He lunged. Not at me. At Mia. He raised the knife to stab her in the chest. No time to shoot. I threw the gun. It spun through the air and hit him square in the face. He stumbled back, dropping the knife. I closed the distance in a heartbeat. I tackled him. We crashed into the wall. He was strong, desperate. He punched me in the ribs. I felt something crack. I ignored it. I grabbed his head. I slammed it into the concrete floor. Once, twice, 3 times. He stopped moving. I scrambled over to Mia. I untied the ropes. Her wrists were raw. She fell into my arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Elena, she cried. I thought you were dead. They said you were dead. I am here. I hugged her tight. I am here. We are leaving. I helped her up. She could barely walk. I supported her weight. We stumbled out into the corridor. The alarm was blaring now. Red lights flashed. We were trapped underground. The elevator was suicide. The stairs would be swarming with reinforcements. Where do we go? Mia asked. Her voice was weak. The loading dock, I said. It is the only way out. We made it to the service bay, but it was blocked. 5 guards stood between us and the exit. They had riot shields. They were waiting. We were cornered. I looked at my gun. 3 bullets left. 5 targets. The math didn't work. Put me down, Mia whispered. Save yourself. Never. I tightened my grip on her. If we die together. The guards advanced. They beat their batons against their shields. A psychological tactic. Intimidation. I raised my gun. I would take 3 of them with me. Suddenly, the service elevator behind the guards dinged. The doors opened. A figure stepped out. He was leaning heavily against the wall. His white shirt was soaked in blood. He held a submachine gun in one hand. It was Damon. He looked like a corpse walking. His face was gray, but his eyes were burning. He raised the submachine gun. Step away from my wife, Damon growled. The guards turned. They were confused. Their boss said Damon was dead. He is a ghost, one guard muttered. I am the owner of this building, Damon shouted, and you are all fired. He pulled the trigger. The submachine gun roared. He didn't aim to kill. He aimed at their legs. He sprayed the floor with lead. The guards screamed as bullets tore through their shins. They collapsed in a heap of tangled limbs and riot gear. Damon dropped the gun. He fell to his knees. He coughed. Blood sprayed from his lips. Damon, I screamed. I dragged Mia over to him. I checked his chest. The silver cigarette case in his pocket was dented. Deeply. The impact had cracked his ribs, maybe bruised his heart, but the bullet hadn't penetrated. He was alive. You are a terrible shot, Damon wheezed. He tried to smile, but it looked like a grimace of pain. You ruined my favorite case. I aimed for it. I tore a strip from my dress and pressed it against his wound. I knew you kept it there. Risky bet. Damon grabbed my hand. His skin was cold. Lucius. He thinks I am dead. He left the building. He thinks he won. We need to go, I said. More will come. My car. Damon pointed to a black sports car parked in the corner, a private reserve vehicle. The keys are in the ignition. Get us out of here, Elena. Drive like the devil. I helped Damon up. He groaned with every step. I shoved him into the back seat with Mia. Hold him, I told my sister. Keep him awake. I jumped into the driver's seat. I started the engine. The V12 roared to life. It sounded like victory. I slammed the accelerator. The car shot forward. We smashed through the wooden barrier of the loading dock. We flew out into the cool night air of New York City. I checked the rearview mirror. No one was following yet. Lucius was too busy celebrating his victory. He didn't know his son was bleeding in the back seat of a Ferrari. He didn't know his best assassin had just stolen his most valuable hostage. "Where are we going?" Mia asked from the back. She was pressing the cloth to Damon's chest. "To the one place Lucius won't look," Damon whispered. His eyes were closing. "The old shipyard. Sector 4, it's off the grid." I turned the wheel sharp. We drifted around a corner. Tires screeched. I looked at Damon. He was fading. "Stay with me, Damon," I ordered. "That is an order." "Yes, ma'am," Damon murmured. "You are very bossy for a subordinate." He passed out. I drove. Tears blurred my vision, but I blinked them away. I had my sister. I had the man I was supposed to kill, and I had a war to win. The contract was broken. Now it was personal. The tires of the stolen sports car crunched over the gravel of the abandoned shipyard. Sector 4 was a graveyard of rusted shipping containers stacked like tombstones against the black sky. It smelled of salt water and diesel fuel. I killed the engine. The silence that followed was heavy. It was broken only by Damon's ragged breathing from the back seat. He sounded like a drowning man. I jumped out and opened the rear door. Mia was crying silently. Her hands were covered in Damon's blood. He stopped groaning. Mia whispered. Her voice trembled. "Elena, I think he is dying." "He is not dying," I snapped. "Help me pull him out." We dragged Damon out of the car. He was heavy, dead weight. His skin was gray. His lips were blue. The impact of the bullet against the silver case had not penetrated his heart, but the shockwave had caused massive internal trauma. His chest was not rising properly. We carried him toward the container marked with a faded red star. Damon had told me about this place once during a drunken rant. It was his safe box. The place where he stored things he could not keep in the penthouse: illegal weapons, cash, and emergency supplies for his mercenaries. I punched the code into the rusty keypad: 1984. The lock hissed. The heavy doors swung open. Inside it was not a storage unit. It was a triage center. A metal table bolted to the floor. Cabinets full of medical supplies. A generator hummed to life as we entered, flooding the space with harsh white light. We hoisted Damon onto the cold metal table. He didn't move. I ripped his shirt open. His chest was a mess of purple and black bruising. The shape of the cigarette case was stamped into his skin right over his heart. "What do we do?" Mia asked. She backed away against the wall, hugging herself. "We need a hospital. We need a doctor." "I am the doctor," I said. I washed my hands with surgical spirit from a bottle on the shelf. The smell of alcohol filled the small space. I grabbed a stethoscope and pressed it to Damon's chest. The sounds were wrong, muffled, distant. His heart was struggling to beat against a rising tide of pressure. Cardiac tamponade. Fluid was building up around his heart sac. If I didn't release it, his heart would stop in less than 5 minutes. "Find me a large gauge needle," I ordered Mia. "And the vodka. Not the medical spirit. The bottle under the sink." Mia froze. She looked at me like I was a stranger. "Elena, you are a waitress. You worked at a diner. How do you know what a large gauge needle is?" "Move, Mia," I shouted. My voice echoed off the steel walls. "Do you want him to die?" Mia flinched. She ran to the cabinet. She returned with a syringe and a bottle of expensive Russian vodka. I poured the vodka over Damon's chest. Then I took a swig myself. I needed to steady my hands. This wasn't a clean operating room. This was a butcher's table. "Hold his shoulders," I told Mia. "If he wakes up, he will thrash. Do not let him move." I located the entry point, just below the rib cage. I didn't have an ultrasound to guide me. I had to rely on anatomy and instinct. I felt for the xiphoid process. I angled the needle. "This is going to hurt," I whispered to the unconscious man. I pushed the needle in. It pierced the skin. I went deeper, past the muscle, past the cartilage. My hand was steady as a rock. Inside my head I was screaming. If I missed, I would puncture his heart and kill him instantly. I felt a sudden pop, a release of resistance. I pulled back on the plunger. Dark blood filled the syringe. Damon gasped. His eyes flew open. He sucked in a massive breath of air as the pressure on his heart released. He screamed, a raw, guttural sound of pure agony. He tried to sit up. "Hold him down!" I yelled. Mia threw her weight onto his shoulders. She was sobbing, but she held him. Damon's eyes were wild. He looked around the room in a panic. He saw the needle in his chest. He saw me standing over him with blood on my hands. "Easy," I said. My voice was calm, hypnotic. "The pressure is gone. Breathe, Damon. Just breathe." I carefully withdrew the needle. I pressed a gauze pad over the puncture wound. Damon collapsed back onto the table. His breathing was still shallow, but it was rhythmic. The blue tint was fading from his lips. He blinked, clearing his vision. He focused on me. "You," Damon rasped. His voice was broken glass. "You stabbed me." "I drained the fluid from your pericardium," I said. I taped the gauze down. "You were drowning in your own blood. You are welcome." Damon stared at the ceiling. Then he turned his head slowly to look at Mia, then back to me. He started to laugh. It was a weak, wheezing laugh. "My wife is a surgeon," he muttered. "A shooter, a driver, a surgeon. Is there anything you cannot do, Elena?" "I cannot cook," I said. I wiped the blood from my hands with a rag. "And I cannot explain any of this to my sister right now." I looked at Mia. She was trembling. She stared at my hands as if they were weapons. And they were. To her, I was her big sister who protected her from bullies. Now I was a woman who could perform heart surgery in a shipping container. The illusion was shattered. "Who are you?" Mia whispered. "You are not Elena. My Elena is afraid of blood." "I am still Elena." I walked over to her. I tried to touch her shoulder, but she flinched away. That hurt more than the cracked ribs I was ignoring. "I did what I had to do to survive, Mia. The people who took us. They changed me." "They turned you into one of them," Mia said. Her eyes were full of fear. "You killed those men in the basement. You didn't even blink." "I killed them so you could live," I said hard. "Do not judge me for keeping you breathing." Damon groaned. He tried to sit up again. This time he succeeded. He swung his legs over the edge of the table. He looked pale, but the fire was back in his eyes. He reached for the vodka bottle and took a long drink. "Leave her alone," Damon said to Mia. "Your sister is a predator. You should be thankful. Sheep do not survive in a world of wolves." He stood up. He swayed slightly but caught himself on the table. He looked at me with a strange intensity. It wasn't suspicion anymore. It was fascination. He walked over to me. He reached out and touched the bruise on my forehead where the gun had hit me earlier. "My father thinks I am dead," Damon said. "My assets are frozen. My allies are silent. We are 3 ghosts in a metal box. We have cash." I pointed to the safe in the corner. "And we have guns. We can leave the country. Start over." "Run!" Damon scoffed. "Sterlings do not run. We regroup, and then we conquer." He walked to the wall and pulled a tarp off a large object. It was a computer server rack. He flipped a switch. Screens flickered to life. Maps, bank accounts, surveillance feeds. "This is the Black Ledger," Damon said. "My father's secret accounting. I stole a copy years ago. It has every bribe, every murder, every dirty deal Lucius ever made. So we leak it, I said. We send him to prison. No, Damon smiled. It was the smile of the devil himself. Prison is too good for him. We are going to use this to bankrupt him. We are going to buy his empire out from under him while he is busy planning my funeral. But I cannot do it alone. I am dead, remember? He turned to me. You are going to be my proxy, Damon said. You are going to walk into the enemy's den. You are going to represent the mystery buyer who is destroying Lucius Sterling. Can you play the part of a billionaire shark, Elena? I looked at my blood-stained dress. I looked at my terrified sister. Then I looked at the man who was asking me to go to war for him. I can play any part, I said, as long as the check clears. Damon nodded. He handed me the vodka bottle. Then drink up, wife, he said. Tomorrow you become the widow Sterling, and you are going to be the most terrifying thing New York has ever seen. I took the bottle. The vodka burned my throat. Outside, the wind howled against the metal walls. We were alive. But the real surgery was just beginning. We were going to cut the cancer out of this city, or we were going to die trying. Put on the veil, Elena. It is showtime. Damon's voice crackled in my hidden earpiece. It sounded weak and breathless, but the command was sharp. I stood in the back of a rented black limousine parked 2 blocks away from St. Patrick's Cathedral. I looked at my reflection in the tinted window. The woman staring back was not the slave who scrubbed floors. She was not the assassin in a torn dress. She was the widow Sterling. I wore a black Givenchy suit that Damon had kept in his emergency cache. It was tailored to perfection. It screamed old money. A black lace veil covered my face, obscuring my eyes but allowing me to see everything. I adjusted the diamond brooch on my lapel. It was the only piece of jewelry I wore. Cold, hard, sharp. Just like the role I had to play. Are you sure about this? I whispered. If I walk in there, I am painting a target on my back. The target is already there. Damon wheezed over the comms. Lucius is turning my funeral into a coronation. He is announcing the merger with the Russians in 1 hour. You have to stop him. You are the only person with the legal standing to freeze the assets. You are my wife, my next of kin, my executioner. I looked at the seat beside me. It was empty. I had left Mia back at the shipyard to watch over Damon. It was a risk leaving a traumatized girl with a dying man. But I had no choice. This battlefield required a solo operative. I opened the car door. The humid New York air hit me. I took a deep breath. I channeled every lesson from the syndicate. Walk with purpose. Show no fear. Be the most dangerous thing in the room. I stepped onto the sidewalk. The paparazzi were swarming the entrance of the cathedral like vultures. They were waiting for a scandal. They got one. As soon as they saw me, the flashbulbs erupted. It was a blinding storm of white light. I did not flinch. I did not shield my face. I walked straight toward the massive bronze doors. The crowd parted. A murmur rippled through the onlookers. They recognized me. The mystery woman. The gold digger. The murder suspect. I let them whisper. Let them hate. Hate is a form of respect in this city. Inside the cathedral, the air was cool and smelled of incense and hypocrisy. 500 of New York's elite filled the pews. They were there to make sure Damon was truly dead so they could carve up his empire. At the front near the closed casket stood Lucius and Isabella. They were a perfect picture of grief. Isabella dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief. Lucius looked solemn. It was a masterful performance. I walked down the center aisle. My heels clicked against the stone floor. The sound echoed through the silent church. It was the sound of a hammer falling. Heads turned. The whispering stopped. Lucius looked up. His eyes widened slightly. He had expected me to be running for the border, not walking into his stronghold. Isabella saw me. Her grief vanished, instantly replaced by pure venom. She stepped out into the aisle, blocking my path. You, Isabella hissed. Her voice was low enough not to carry to the back rows but loud enough for the front row to hear. You have some nerve showing your face here. You killed him. Move, Isabella, I said calmly. I am here to say goodbye to my husband. Husband? Isabella scoffed. You were a pet. A mistake. And now you are a murderer. Security. Get this trash out of here. Two large men in suits stepped forward. They were Lucius's private guard. The same men who had hunted me in the tower. They reached for my arms. Do not touch me. I did not raise my voice. I raised my chin. I am Mrs. Damon Sterling. I am the primary shareholder of the Sterling Group. If you lay a hand on me, I will sue you personally for assault, and then I will fire you. The guards hesitated. They looked at Lucius. They knew the law. In America, the widow holds the keys until the will is read. They didn't want to bet their pensions on a power struggle that wasn't decided yet. Let her through, Lucius said. His voice was smooth like oil on water. He walked over to me. He stood next to Isabella, placing a hand on her shoulder to restrain her. My dear Elena, we thought you were missing. We were so worried. The police are looking for you. I am right here, Lucius, I said, and I have been speaking with my lawyers. It seems there are some discrepancies in the way Damon died, and in the way you are handling his assets. Lucius leaned in close. To the cameras it looked like a father-in-law comforting a grieving widow, but his words were a razor blade. You should have stayed in the shadows, little girl, Lucius whispered. You have no idea what you just walked into. Do you really think a piece of paper makes you one of us? I can have you disappeared before the first hymn is over. Try it, I whispered back. Damon's voice in my ear told me exactly what to say next. Ask him about the Cayman account. 743. The bribe to the senator. How is the senator doing, Lucius? I said. I heard the transaction from account 743 in the Caymans hit a snag. It would be a shame if the FBI traced that wire transfer back to your personal IP address. Lucius froze. His face went gray. It was the reaction of a man who realizes his safe is unlocked. He stepped back. He looked at me with a new emotion. Fear. Who are you? He breathed. I am the woman who knows where the bodies are buried, I said. Now sit down. And shut up. I have a eulogy to give. I walked past him. I walked past the casket. I didn't look at it. I knew it was empty. Or filled with sand. It didn't matter. I stepped up to the podium. I adjusted the microphone. I looked out at the sea of black suits. 500 sharks waiting for blood. Friends. Partners. Rivals. I began. My voice was steady. You are all here to mourn Damon Sterling. You think his death is the end of an era. You think his company is up for grabs. You think you can pick his bones clean. I paused. I let the silence stretch until it was uncomfortable. You are wrong, I continued. Damon Sterling did not die in vain. He left everything to me. His shares, his voting rights, his seat on the board. As of this morning, I have filed an injunction to freeze all mergers. There will be no sale to the Russian consortium. There will be no liquidation. A gasp went through the room. Isabella stood up. She was shaking. She is lying, Isabella screamed. She lost her composure completely. She is a fraud. She is a whore he bought at an auction. She cannot run a company. Hi, and you are a failed investment, Isabella, I said into the microphone. My voice boomed through the cathedral speakers. Sit down before I release the security footage from the parking garage, the footage of you handing the detonator to the valet. Isabella collapsed back into the pew. Her face was white. The crowd was buzzing now. Phones were out. The live stream was going viral. The Widow Sterling was not just a title. It was a weapon. Damon Sterling is dead, I said, closing the folder I had brought. But his will is alive, and I am its keeper. Anyone who wants to challenge me can meet me in court, or in hell. Thank you for coming. I stepped down from the podium. I didn't wait for applause. There wouldn't be any. I walked straight toward the exit. The plan was executed. We had bought time. We had stopped the sale. Now I just needed to get back to the car and disappear before Lucius recovered from the shock. Good job, Elena! Damon's voice in my ear was faint. Static was interfering. Now get out. Lucius signaled his head of security. The exits are being blocked. Go to the side door. The sacristy. I turned sharp, right heading for the small door near the altar. I moved fast, shedding the grieving widow act. I was Viper again. I pushed through the heavy wooden door into the sacristy. It was empty. I ran toward the back exit that led to the alley. Damon. I touched my earpiece. I am heading to the alley. Have the car ready. Silence. Damon, I repeated. Damon, do you copy? Static. Then a voice. But it wasn't Damon's. It was a woman's voice. Cold. Mechanical. The line is disconnected. The voice said. My blood ran cold. It wasn't a network error. Someone had cut the connection at the source. At the shipyard. I burst out into the alleyway. The sunlight blinded me for a second. I blinked. The limousine was gone. The alley was empty except for a black van blocking the end of the street. And standing in front of me, leaning against the brick wall, was a man I thought I would never see again. It was not Lucius's guard. It was not a cop. It was Victor, my instructor from the syndicate, the man who taught me how to kill with a spoon, the man who held the leash to my sister. He smoked a cigarette, looking at me with disappointed eyes. You went off script, Viper, Victor said. He dropped the cigarette and crushed it with his boot. The contract was simple. Kill the target. Instead, you married him, and you made a spectacle on national television. The boss is very unhappy. I reached for the gun in my purse. Don't, Victor warned. I have a sniper on the roof. And unlike the amateur Lucius hired, mine does not miss. Besides, you do not want to start a fight. Not when we have guests. He slid the van door open. Inside on the floor, bound and gagged, was Mia. And next to her, unconscious and bleeding through his bandages, was Damon. They had found the shipyard. While I was playing corporate shark, they had raided the only safe place we had. Get in, Victor ordered. We are going for a ride. It seems we need to renegotiate the terms of your employment. I looked at Damon. He was barely breathing. I looked at Mia. Her eyes were pleading. I looked at Victor. I had no leverage. I had no backup. The black ledger was in Damon's pocket inside the van. I had walked into the lion's den, and while I was roaring, the wolves had eaten my family. I dropped my purse. I raised my hands. I will kill you, Victor, I whispered. If he dies, I will kill you all. I count on it. Victor smiled. Now get in. The widow Sterling has a funeral to attend. Her own. I stepped into the van. The door slammed shut, plunging us into darkness. The engine roared. We were moving. Not toward safety, but back to where it all began. The syndicate. They hung him up like a side of beef. That was the first thought that crossed my mind when the burlap sack was pulled off my head. The air in the room was freezing. It smelled of bleach and old copper. We were inside an industrial meat locker. The walls were lined with stainless steel hooks. Most were empty, but the one in the center was occupied. Damon Sterling was suspended by his wrists. His feet barely touched the concrete floor. His white shirt was gone. His chest was a canvas of purple bruises, and the stark white bandage I had applied was now soaked through with fresh red. He was unconscious. His head hung low. His breathing was a ragged, shallow rattle that echoed in the silent room. I tried to move. I couldn't. I was zip-tied to a heavy steel chair. Next to me, Mia was curled into a ball on the floor, also bound. She was shivering violently. Her eyes were squeezed shut, trying to block out the nightmare. Comfortable? Victor asked. He was standing by a metal table arranging his instruments. He didn't look like a monster. He looked like an accountant who just happened to enjoy skinning people. He wore a plastic apron over his suit to protect it from the splatter. "Let him down, Victor," I said. My voice was calm, but my pulse was hammering against my ribs. "He is bleeding internally. If you keep him upright, gravity will drain him dry in 20 minutes. You won't get paid if the merchandise is damaged." Victor turned around. He held a cattle prod in his hand. He clicked the button. A blue arc of electricity snapped in the cold air. "That is the problem, Viper," Victor said. He walked over to Damon. "I am not getting paid. Lucius called me 10 minutes ago. He is very unhappy with your little stunt at the cathedral. He says the contract was to eliminate his son, not to resurrect him. He canceled the transfer." Victor touched the cattle prod to Damon's ribs. Just a tap. Damon's body seized. He let out a choked gasp. His eyes flew open. They were glassy and unfocused. He looked around wildly before his gaze landed on me. He didn't scream. He just gritted his teeth until I thought they would crack. "So now I have a dilemma," Victor continued. He circled Damon like a shark. "I have a dead asset, a rogue agent, and a witness." He pointed the prod at Mia. "Lucius wants you all dead to clean up the mess. He offered me a cleanup fee. It is not much, but it is better than nothing." "Lucius is lying to you," I said quickly. "He won't pay you a cleanup fee. He will send a cleanup crew to clean up the cleanup crew. You know how he works. No loose ends. That includes you." Victor paused. He knew I was right. In the underworld, Lucius Sterling had a reputation. He didn't pay debts. He eliminated creditors. "Maybe," Victor shrugged. "But killing you will be fun. And killing him." He looked at Damon. "Well, I have always wanted to see if blue bloods bleed the same color as the rest of us." He raised the cattle prod again. This time he aimed for the wound on Damon's chest. "Stop!" I shouted. "Victor, listen to me. You want money. You want to retire. Lucius offered you what? 2 million? 5 million? 10, Victor said. "Chump change." I spat on the floor. "Damon Sterling is worth $50 billion, and he is the only one who can access it." Damon lifted his head. He understood the play. He coughed, spitting blood onto the concrete. "She is right," Damon rasped. His voice was weak, but the arrogance was still there. "My father thinks he took my company, but he forgot about the offshore accounts. The Black Ledger. There is $500 million in liquid cash sitting in a server in the Caymans, and only I have the biometrics to unlock it." Victor lowered the prod. Greed flickered in his eyes. It was the universal weakness of every mercenary. They didn't fight for ideology. They fought for the exit strategy. 500 million, Victor repeated. He looked at Damon. Then he looked at me. "Prove it." "Check the Black Ledger." Damon nodded toward the pile of our confiscated belongings on the table. "The tablet. Open the secure folder. Passcode is my birthday. You will see the balance, but you cannot withdraw it. It requires a retinal scan and a voice print. My voice print." Victor walked over to the table. He picked up the tablet. He punched in the code. His eyes widened as he scrolled through the accounts. The numbers were staggering. Enough to buy a small island and disappear forever. "Impressive," Victor muttered. "So here is the new deal. You transfer the money to my account. All of it. And I let you live." "No," Damon said. Victor froze. "Excuse me." I said no. Damon smiled. A bloody, terrifying smile. "You are a smart man, Victor. If I transfer the money, you kill us anyway. Because we are witnesses. And because Lucius will pay you a bonus for our heads." Victor walked back to Damon. He jammed the cattle prod into Damon's shoulder. He held the button down. Damon screamed. His body arched against the chains. The smell of burning flesh filled the locker. Mia screamed too, begging him to stop. I strained against my zip ties, tearing the skin on my wrists. "Transfer the money," Victor roared. Damon went limp. He was panting. Sweat dripped from his face, freezing on the floor. "You can torture me until I die," Damon whispered. "But if my heart stops, the system locks down automatically. Dead man's switch. You get nothing. Lucius gets nothing. The money vanishes into the ether." It was a bluff. I knew it was a bluff. There was no dead man's switch. But Victor didn't know that. And $500 million was too much to gamble on a guess. Victor stepped back. He was frustrated. He turned to me. He grabbed my hair and pulled my head back. "He loves you," Victor hissed in my ear. "Or at least he pretends to. Let's see if his dead man's switch works when I start carving pieces off you." He picked up a boning knife from the table. The blade was 6 inches long and razor sharp. He held it to my cheek. "Damon," Victor called out. "I am going to take her left eye, unless you unlock the first 10 million. Right now. Call it a good faith deposit." Damon looked at me. I saw the fear in his eyes. Not for himself, but for me. The bond we had forged in blood and fire was real. He couldn't watch me get hurt. "Fine," Damon said. 10 million. Untie his hands. Victor laughed. "I don't think so. I will hold the tablet. You just look at the camera for the scan." Victor walked over and held the tablet up to Damon's face. The screen flashed, scanning his retina. "Now the voice phrase," Victor demanded. "The price of freedom is blood," Damon said clearly. The tablet pinged. Access granted. Victor tapped the screen, transferring $10 million to his numbered account in Switzerland. He watched the confirmation bar load. His face lit up with pure avarice. "See?" Victor smiled. "That wasn't so hard. Now the rest." "Not yet," I interjected. "That was the down payment. Now we talk about the partnership." Victor turned to me. "Partnership. You are delusional, Viper." "Think about it, Victor," I said. "You take the 10 million. You run. Lucius will hunt you down because you didn't kill us. The syndicate will hunt you down because you went rogue. You will spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. But if you help us take down Lucius, you get 50 million. And you get a pardon. Damon can wipe your record. He owns senators. He owns judges. He can give you a new life. Not just money, but freedom." Victor looked at the tablet. Then he looked at Damon. 50 million, Victor mused. "And a clean slate." "And the head of Lucius Sterling?" Damon added. "I know you hate him, Victor. I saw the way he treated you like a servant. You are better than that. You are a kingmaker." It was flattery mixed with logic, the perfect cocktail to manipulate a narcissist. Victor lowered the knife. He walked around the room pacing. He was weighing the odds. Betray Lucius and maybe die, or join us and maybe get rich. "Lucius has a private army," Victor said. "You are 3 people. One is dying, one is a traitor, and one is a crying girl. The odds are not good." "We have the Black Ledger," I said. "We know where his money is. We can cut off his supply lines. Without money, his army will leave him. Just like you are about to." Victor stopped pacing. He looked at his watch. "Lucius is expecting a confirmation photo of your bodies in 1 hour," Victor said. "If I don't send it, he sends the cleanup crew." "Send him a photo," I said. "Stage it. Use pig blood. There is plenty of it in here. Make him think we are dead. Give us the element of surprise." Victor looked at the carcasses hanging on the far wall. He looked at the knife in his hand. A slow, dark smile spread across his face. "I always liked you, Viper." Victor walked over to me. He sliced the zip ties on my wrists with a single fluid motion. "You have guts. Stupid. But guts?" I rubbed my wrists. The circulation returned with a painful sting. "Cut him down!" I ordered, pointing at Damon. Victor hesitated. Then he walked over and cut the ropes holding Damon. Damon collapsed. I caught him before he hit the floor. He groaned, his weight crushing me. "We have a deal," Victor said. "But if you double-cross me, I will skin the sister first while you watch." "Understood," I said. I dragged Damon to the corner. Mia crawled over, weeping softly. She helped me prop him up. Damon was pale, sweating profusely. The adrenaline of the negotiation was fading, leaving him critical again. "We need to get him to a real hospital," I whispered to Victor. "No hospitals." Victor was already typing on his phone. "Too many cameras. I know a vet. He does patchwork for the mob. He is dirty, but he is good. But first we have to take a picture." Victor walked over to a bucket of animal waste and blood in the corner. He dipped his hands in it. "Lie down," Victor ordered us. "Look dead." I lay down on the cold concrete next to Damon. I pulled Mia down beside me. Victor splashed the cold, foul liquid over us. It smelled of death. I held my breath. I closed my eyes. Click! The camera shutter sound was the only thing in the room. "Sent," Victor said. "Lucius just bought it. You are officially ghosts again." Damon squeezed my hand. His grip was weak, but it was there. "Now," Damon whispered, "we go to war." Suddenly, the heavy steel door of the meat locker slammed shut. The lock engaged with a deafening clang. The lights flickered and died, plunging us into total darkness. "Victor," I screamed, "what did you do?" "I sent the picture." Victor's voice came through the thick metal door, muffled and distant. "And I took the 10 million. But 50 million is too much work. And I don't trust you, Viper. Lucius offered 20 million for your heads. I think I will just leave you in there until the cold does the job. It is cleaner that way. No mess." The sound of the cooling fans intensified. The temperature began to drop rapidly. He had betrayed us. He took the money and he locked us in a freezer to turn into ice sculptures. "Victor, you son of a bitch!" I pounded on the door. "Save your oxygen." Damon's voice cut through the dark. "He is gone." We were trapped in a soundproof, airtight freezer with a dying man and the temperature dropping towards 0. The butcher's bill had come due. And we were the meat. 10 degrees Fahrenheit and dropping. The cold was not a passive element here. It was an aggressive living entity trying to suck the heat from our marrow. Damon was already unconscious. His body, weakened by blood loss, had no defense against the hypothermia. His breathing was a faint, shallow crackle. The fake blood and waste dried on our skin, creating a frozen crust. Mia was curled in a corner, sobbing silently into her knees. She had given up. I looked at the steel door. It was thick and sealed with a magnetic lock from the outside. Brute force was useless. I looked up at the ceiling. 2 massive industrial fans whirred violently, pulling the air through cooling coils. They were guarded by heavy iron grates. "We are going to die here, Elena," Mia whispered. Her teeth chattered so hard I could barely understand her. "Just like Mom and Dad." "No." I stood up. My joints popped with the cold. Victor made a mistake. He left a weapon. I walked over to the rack of meat hooks. I grabbed the heaviest one. It was solid steel, 2 feet long with a wicked curved point. I looked up at the cooling system near the fans. Copper pipes ran along the ceiling carrying pressurized coolant, R404A, highly volatile under pressure. If ruptured suddenly, it would create an explosive decompression. A poor man's bomb. "Mia," I said sharply, "get over here. Cover Damon's head with your body. Now." She obeyed sluggishly, crawling over Damon. I climbed the stack of frozen cow carcasses. They were slippery with ice. My fingers were numb. I dug my nails into the frozen flesh to gain traction. I reached the ceiling. The fan blades spun inches from my face. I braced myself against a steel beam. I raised the meat hook. I aimed for the thickest copper pipe right next to the fan grate. I swung with everything I had left. The steel hook punctured the copper pipe. A deafening hiss erupted as the pressurized gas exploded outward in a white cloud. The force was massive. The metal grate covering the fan buckled outward and ripped away from its bolts, clattering into the ventilation shaft. The fan blade slammed into the bent metal, screeching violently before jamming to a halt. Silence fell. A dark square hole led to the outside world. "Go!" I yelled down at Mia. "Climb up here. Crawl through." I practically dragged her up the frozen meat stack and shoved her into the greasy ventilation shaft. Then I turned to Damon. He was dead weight. I slapped his face hard. "Wake up, Sterling," I hissed. "If you die here, Victor wins." His eyes fluttered. He groaned. Adrenaline and sheer will were the only things keeping him alive. I dragged him to the wall. It took every ounce of strength I had to hoist him up and push him into the shaft. I followed, tumbling out onto the floor of the loading dock. The air in the warehouse felt tropical compared to the locker. We were out. "Where is he?" Damon whispered, lying on the dirty floor. He fumbled in his pocket with frozen fingers and pulled out his smartphone. The screen was cracked but functional. He opened a tracking app. A bright red dot was moving rapidly east on the Long Island Expressway. "The tablet," Damon murmured, his lips blue. "It has an embedded GPS tracker. He is heading toward the private airfields in Farmingdale. He is fleeing the country. He was running with the 10 million. And my pride. Stay here with him," I told Mia. I looked around the loading dock. It was night. The shift was over. But there was one vehicle left. A massive refrigerated 18-wheeler truck idling near the bay doors. The driver was outside checking the tires. I didn't hesitate. I walked up behind him, grabbed the back of his head, and slammed his face into the side of the truck. He went down without a sound. "Sorry," I muttered. "Emergency requisition." I ran back, dragged Damon and Mia toward the cab, and shoved them inside. It was a tight squeeze. I jumped into the driver's seat. It felt like sitting in the cockpit of a tank. I put it in gear. The massive diesel engine roared. I didn't bother with the gate. I smashed the truck straight through the chain-link fence and peeled out onto the service road. The chase was on. I merged onto the highway. I saw Victor's sleek black sports car weaving through the late-night traffic ahead. He thought he was free. He was wrong. I floored the accelerator. The truck groaned as it picked up speed. I was a 90,000-pound missile locked onto his bumper. Victor must have seen the behemoth bearing down on him in his rearview mirror. He tried to speed up, changing lanes aggressively, but traffic was thick. I didn't brake. I plowed through a sedan that got in my way, sending it spinning onto the shoulder. I didn't care. The syndicate trained me to focus on the target and eliminate obstacles. We were closing in. 10 car lengths. 5. I could see the back of his head. I could see him talking on the phone frantically, probably trying to arrange his pilot. "Hold on," I warned Damon and Mia. I wrenched the wheel to the left, then sharply back to the right. The maneuver is called the pit. Precision immobilization technique. Usually done with cop cars. Doing it with a semi-truck was insanity. The massive chrome bumper of the truck clipped the rear quarter panel of Victor's sports car. Physics took over. The sports car lost traction instantly. It spun wildly across 3 lanes of traffic. It hit the concrete center divider head-on at 80 miles an hour. The car flipped into the air, rolling twice before landing on its roof in a shower of sparks and broken glass. I slammed on the air brakes. The truck shuddered to a halt, blocking all 3 lanes of the highway. Steam hissed from the engine. "Wait here," I said. I grabbed the meat cleaver I had tucked into my waistband. I jumped down from the cab. The smell of spilled gasoline and burnt rubber filled the air. I walked toward the overturned wreck. Victor was crawling out of the shattered driver's side window. He was covered in blood from a gash on his forehead. He looked up dazed and saw me standing there silhouetted by the truck's headlights holding a cleaver. The look on his face shifted from confusion to pure primal terror. He scrambled backward on the asphalt, trying to get away on his hands and knees. "Viper!" he choked out. "Wait, let's talk. The money. You can have half. 5 million. I didn't stop walking. I stepped on his hand, crushing his fingers against the pavement. He screamed. "You should have checked the temperature, Victor," I said calmly, looking down at him. "You left us to freeze like meat. Now I am the butcher." I raised the cleaver. I wasn't going to kill him quickly. He had betrayed the only family I had left. He deserved to suffer. "Elena, stop." Damon's voice came from behind me. I turned. Damon was leaning against the truck, holding his chest. He looked like death warmed over, but his eyes were sharp. He was holding the tablet that had fallen out of Victor's car. "Do not kill him yet," Damon said. "We need him." "He tried to kill us, Damon," I said. My grip on the cleaver tightened. "He sold us to your father for pennies." "Exactly." Damon walked closer. He held up the tablet. "He was on the phone with Lucius when you hit him. The call is still active. Lucius is listening right now." I looked at the tablet screen. "Call in progress. The boss." Damon hit the speaker button. "Hello, father," Damon said into the tablet. His voice was weak, but dripping with venom. "Sorry to interrupt your victory celebration, but your cleanup crew just got cleaned up." Silence on the other end. Then Lucius's voice, calm and cold. "Damon, how disappointing. You are like a cockroach. Hard to kill." "We have Victor," Damon continued. "And we have the tablet with the transfer confirmation. Proof that you paid for a hit on your own son. The FBI would love this." "You won't go to the FBI," Lucius laughed. "You are a Sterling. We do not involve the authorities in family matters." "You are right." Damon smiled a blood-stained smile. "I am not going to the FBI. I am coming for you. Tonight. And I am bringing my wife. Victor is going to tell us exactly where your current safe house is. Aren't you, Victor?" Damon looked down at the terrified man on the ground. "Yes," Victor sobbed. "Yes. Anything. Just don't let her cut me." Damon looked at me. He nodded toward the cab of the truck. "Put him in the back," Damon ordered me. "We have a final stop to make. It is time to end this family reunion once and for all." I lowered the cleaver. The rage was still there, burning hot. But Damon was right. Victor was a map to Lucius. I grabbed Victor by his expensive torn suit and dragged him toward the truck. The night was far from over. The hunt had just begun. The elevator ride to the penthouse took 40 seconds. 40 seconds of silence broken only by Victor's whimpering. He was our ticket in. I stood behind him with the meat cleaver pressed against his kidney. Damon leaned against the mirrored wall. He looked like a specter. His skin was the color of ash, but his eyes burned with a feverish intensity. He checked the magazine of the Glock he had taken from the truck driver. 7 rounds. Enough to end a dynasty. "Remember the script, Victor," I whispered. "You are bringing us in as prisoners. If you stutter, if you blink wrong, I will sever your spine." The elevator chimed. The doors slid open. We stepped into the foyer of the penthouse. It was a palace of glass and steel floating above the city. 4 guards stood waiting with assault rifles. They saw Victor. They saw me with my hands zip-tied loosely behind my back. They saw Damon limping. They relaxed. It was a fatal mistake. "I have the package," Victor called out. His voice trembled. "Lucius is expecting us. Check them for weapons." The head guard stepped forward. I didn't wait. I snapped the fake zip ties. I spun Victor around and shoved him into the head guard. They collided in a tangle of limbs. I grabbed the guard's rifle. I didn't fire. I used the stock to shatter his jaw. Damon fired 2 shots. Clean. Precise. 2 guards dropped. The 4th guard raised his weapon. I threw the meat cleaver. It spun through the air and embedded itself in his shoulder. He screamed and dropped the gun. It was over in 6 seconds. We stepped over the groaning bodies. The double doors to the main office were ahead. This was it. The throne room. Damon walked forward. He didn't limp anymore. He walked with the terrifying grace of a king returning to execute a usurper. He kicked the doors open. Lucius Sterling sat behind his massive obsidian desk. He was drinking a glass of vintage scotch. Isabella stood by the window looking out at the city she thought she owned. She turned when the doors opened. Her face went slack with shock. She dropped her wineglass. It shattered on the floor, a red stain spreading like blood. "Hello, Father," Damon said. He walked into the room. He didn't raise his gun. He held the tablet. "You look surprised. Did Victor not send the photo?" Lucius set his glass down. His hand shook slightly. Just a tremor. But I saw it. The invincible patriarch was afraid. "You are persistent, Damon," Lucius said. "I will give you that. But you are trespassing. Security is on the way." "Security works for the highest bidder." Damon threw the tablet onto the desk. It slid across the obsidian surface and stopped right in front of Lucius. "And as of 2 minutes ago, that is me. I liquidated the Cayman accounts. All of them. $500 million. It is gone, Father. I donated it." "You did what?" Lucius stood up. His composure cracked. "You are lying. You wouldn't burn your own inheritance." "I didn't burn it." Damon smiled. It was the cruelest smile I had ever seen. "I donated it to a shell company owned by the SEC, along with the Black Ledger. They are opening the files right now. Bribery, murder, arms dealing. It is all there. You are not just broke, Lucius. You are the most wanted man in America." Isabella screamed. "You idiot! You ruined us!" She rushed at Damon. She wanted to scratch his eyes out. I intercepted her. I didn't hit her. I just caught her wrist. I twisted it until she fell to her knees. "Sit down, Isabella," I said. "The adults are talking." Lucius looked at the tablet. He saw the transfer confirmation. He saw the email to the federal authorities. His empire was crumbling in real time. He looked at Damon. The hatred in his eyes was absolute. "I gave you everything," Lucius hissed. "I built this world for you." "No." Damon stepped closer. He placed his hands on the desk, leaning in. "You built a cage, and you put a price tag on everyone inside it, including me, including Mother." Lucius opened the top drawer of his desk. "Gun!" I shouted. I lunged forward, but I was too far away. Lucius pulled out a silver revolver. He didn't aim at Damon. He knew Damon was already dead walking. He aimed at me. He knew that was the only way to truly hurt his son. "Then watch your pet die." Lucius pulled the trigger. Time slowed down. I saw the cylinder turn. I saw the hammer fall. I couldn't dodge. I braced for the impact. Bang. The shot was deafening, but I didn't feel the bullet. Damon had moved. He threw himself in front of me. The bullet hit him in the shoulder, spinning him around. He fell to the floor. "No," I screamed. My vision went red. I didn't think. I didn't calculate. I became pure violence. I vaulted over the desk. Lucius tried to cock the gun again. I kicked it out of his hand. I grabbed him by his tie and slammed his face into the obsidian desk. I heard his nose break. I didn't stop. I pulled him up and slammed him again, and again. That slam is slam for slam. My slam. Husband. I held him there, breathing hard. His face was a ruin. He was conscious, but barely. I picked up the revolver from the floor. I pressed the barrel to his temple. My finger tightened on the trigger. Every instinct in my body screamed to finish the contract, to end the monster who had terrorized my sister, who had shot the man I Elena. Damon's voice was weak. I froze. I looked back. Damon was lying on the carpet. Blood pooled under his shoulder. He was looking at me, shaking his head. Don't, Damon whispered. If you kill him, you go to prison. He wins. Let him live. Let him rot in a cell with nothing. That is a worse death for a Sterling. I looked at Lucius. He was looking at me with one swollen eye. He wanted me to do it. He wanted to be a martyr. He wanted the easy way out. I lowered the gun. I leaned close to his ear. You are right, I whispered. Death is too good for you. I want you to see us living in your house, spending your money, while you eat prison food for the rest of your life. I pistol whipped him one last time. He slumped to the floor unconscious. Sirens wailed in the distance. Real police this time, called by the automatic alert from the SEC file transfer. I dropped the gun. I ran to Damon. I ripped the sleeve of his shirt and pressed it against the new wound. You are an idiot. I was crying now. The tears fell on his face. Why did you take the bullet? You are the king. You don't take bullets for the pawn. Damon reached up. His hand was bloody but warm. He touched my cheek. I told you. Damon coughed. You are not a pawn. You are the queen, and the king protects the queen. The doors burst open. SWAT teams poured in. FBI, nobody move. I raised my hands, but I didn't move away from him. I stayed right there shielding him until the paramedics arrived. 2 weeks later, the penthouse was quiet. The glass had been replaced. The blood had been scrubbed from the carpet. Lucius was in federal custody awaiting trial. Isabella had turned state's witness to reduce her sentence, but she was ruined socially. The Sterling name was damaged, but Damon had spun the narrative. He was the whistleblower, the hero who cleaned house. I stood on the balcony looking out at New York. I wore a white dress, not a wedding dress, just white, clean, new. The sliding door opened. Damon walked out. His arm was in a sling. He walked slowly, but he was healing. He stood next to me. Your sister is safe, Damon said. I set up a trust fund for her, and I enrolled her in that art school in Paris she wanted. She leaves tomorrow. Thank you, I said. I didn't look at him. And the syndicate. Dismantled. Damon handed me a glass of wine. Victor talked. We routed their accounts. They are scattered. So it is over, I said. Yes. Damon sipped his wine. The contract is fulfilled. The enemy is defeated. He reached into his pocket. He pulled out a piece of paper. It was the contract of sale, the receipt from the auction where he bought me for $50 million. He held it up. He took a lighter from his pocket and set the corner on fire. We watched it burn. The paper curled into black ash and floated away on the wind. You are free, Elena, Damon said. He didn't look at me. He looked at the city. The debt is paid. You can go to Paris with Mia. You can go anywhere. You have 10 million in your account. You never have to see me again. My heart stopped. This was it. The moment I had fought for since the beginning. Freedom. No masters. No chains. I looked at the door. I could walk out right now. I looked at Damon, the man who bought me, the man who tortured me, the man who took a bullet for me, the man who burned $50 million to save me. I took the wine glass from his hand and set it on the railing. I stepped closer to him. I reached up and adjusted the collar of his shirt. I cannot go to Paris, I said. Damon turned to me. Why not? Because I have a job here, I said. Someone has to run the security for the new Sterling Empire, and your current head of security is incompetent. Damon stared at me. Hope flickered in his dark eyes. It is a dangerous job, Damon said. Long hours. Difficult boss. I can handle the boss, I smiled. I know his weak spots. And the pay, Damon asked. His voice dropped an octave. He stepped closer, closing the gap between us. His good arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me against him. Negotiable, I whispered, but I demand a new contract. What are the terms? Damon leaned down. His lips were inches from mine. Equal partners, I said. No masters, no slaves, just us, against the world. Damon kissed me. It wasn't angry. It wasn't possessive. It was a promise, a seal on a new covenant written not in ink, but in blood and survival. Agreed, Damon murmured against my lips. Long live the Queen. I looked out at the city one last time. It was still a jungle. There were still predators out there, but for the first time in my life, I wasn't running. I was home. And God help anyone who tried to touch what was mine.